needed a night off, so I'm going to do this for him on my own. And tonight at Apollo Reads, we're going to read Louis Trondheim's Monster Christmas, the almost normal adventure of an almost ordinary family with a pet monster. Monster Christmas by Louis Trondheim. Soon, says important, read this first. Petey and Jean loved to draw pictures of monsters. One day they draw a scary monster that comes alive. It escapes right off the paper and disappears into their home. Well, they certainly have to do something about that. So they drew a nice monster with 3 legs, 4 arms, and 10 mouths to eat. And, of course, a bad monster. The bad monster. The plan works and... mouths to eat. They make the mouths to eat the bad monster. That's interesting. The plan works, and Petey and Jean decide to keep the nice monster as a pet. And they name it Chris. So this is Chris. Soon it'll be Christmas. Sure, it would be nice if Mom and Dad put up the tree and decorations, but they're too busy playing with their big map and saying, there, or there. When they go into the kitchen, we have fun with the map, and while singing fa la 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 la. But apparently, you're not supposed to play around like that with that kind of big map. So, while Mom fixes it with tape, Dad sends us to our rooms. When you get punished all by yourself, you feel a little sad. But when you get punished together, it's all right. Suddenly, Mom comes into our room. Is she going to be upset with us again, even though we were careful about play fighting? Oh no, she just opens an armoire and picks out some of our clothes, and she puts the clothes into a suitcase. Woohoo! That means we're going on vacation, or that Mom and Dad are going to send us to a boarding school far from home, or that our clothes are too little because we've grown a lot, and now we can go to all the movies on our own, or that she's making room in their armoire to shut us inside when we're not good, or that each of us will have a room all to ourselves, or that there's going to be a huge earthquake and we've got to move away real quick, or that some huge giant monster is going to fight in the street and the neighborhood has to be evacuated. Oh my! Mom tells us, in fact, that we are going on vacation. And that's what we thought at first, but a monster battle in the street would have been way cooler. And that also means we won't have to have a pretty Christmas tree in our house this year. When we ask if we're going to Grandpa and Grandma's, Mom says no. We're going somewhere else this year. Yes, we're going to the North Pole to see Santa Claus. No, says Mom, we're going to the mountains to go skiing and sledding. Gee, we've never gone skiing before, or sledding either. We live right in the middle of town, and it doesn't snow often here. So whenever we want to go sledding on the rooftops, Mom and Dad always say no. We're really very happy, but we're still sad that we won't have a Christmas tree. So Dad says we'll take some garland and decorations to brighten up the place and we'll be staying at. Mom says it sounds like it'll be pretty, and yeah, we're sure it'll be pretty too. Mom and Dad pack the bags while we help by being good and watching a DVD. Okay, says Dad. Chris, you're going to stay home and be good. There are 500 packs of chocolate cookies for you in the garage. In spite of the 500 packs of cookies, Chris is really sad. He thought he was going to come on vacation to the mountains with us. We tell Mom and Dad we'd like Chris to go with us. Dad says that even if he wanted Chris to go, there wouldn't be enough room for him in the car. So sadly, we say goodbye to Chris, and we promise to bring him back some snowballs. That way, we'll all have fun together in the backyard. Then we go pee-pee, because you always have to go pee-pee before going anywhere in the car. And once we're in the car, we're not supposed to keep asking, are we there yet? Are we there yet? That annoys Mom and Dad. But we're kids, and we ask anyway. The car is nice because we're going somewhere else, but it's boring because you can't do anything in it. And what's more, we're buckled in. So we ask to eat and to drink, and then afterward we need to go pee-pee again. Whoa, the car's stopping. We ask if we're there yet. Dad says no, that the car is thirsty. We know the car's not thirsty, but that it just needs gas to keep it running. And that's when we see Chris. How about that? Mom and Dad gave us a surprise. They'd brought him with us after all. Guess not. Mom and Dad look mad, and we realize that Chris had run after us behind our car. And finally, Mom and Dad decide to bring Chris with us, and everybody is happy. We see the mountains in the distance. There's lots of snow on them, and we wish we were there already, especially because the road's winding more and more, and it can make you sick to your stomach. Mom asks Dad to pull over to the side for a short break, but Dad wants to go on all the way without stopping. Suddenly, something falls from the sky, and Dad stops after all. The thing bounces up and quickly disappears among the fir trees. We say, "It's Santa Claus!" And while Mom and Dad give each other a strange look, Mom suggests we take this opportunity to park on the side of the road and have a peaceful little break. And yikes! There's a monster bursting through the trees, climbing up the mountain. It passes by without eating us, following the same path as Santa Claus. Quickly, we realize the monster was chasing Santa Claus, so we say we have to climb the mountain quickly to save Santa. But Dad says to save Santa, we'd risk getting ripped to pieces and smashed by that monster, and that it might be dangerous. We say, okay, so everyone gets back into the car to continue the trip. We really wanted to help Santa Claus because if he gets eaten, there won't be any more presents for any of the kids ever again. Or for the two of us either. And a little higher up, we see that monster again, who's continuing to climb the mountain. It creates a terrible avalanche that falls on us. Ah! This time, we're really happy to be buckled up in our car. It was actually fun, we say, again, but Dad doesn't want to do it again. Once we're out of the car, we can't find Chris. We call him for a long time, but he doesn't answer. Mom says maybe we'll find him later, but for now, we have to save our strength to walk. Mom proposes going back down to the nearest village, and Dad proposes going up to the nearest village instead. So we say, giddy up, giddy up. We don't know why, but Mom and Dad won't make any horse noises. We go forward for a super long time. We're happy because usually Mom and Dad say they're tired a lot sooner. Dad says everything's all right, while looking all around him. That means we're lost for sure. But boom! Something falls from the sky and almost crushes us. Mom gets closer to complain to the man who fell, but she stops really quick when she sees it's Santa Claus. We quickly go to help him. We don't need any bandages or mercurochrome to wake him up. Some hugs and kisses are just enough. And at first, Santa is happy, but a little later, he tells us to leave quickly. Then, when we ask why, he says it's because of the big monster that's chasing him. It ate all of the sleigh's reindeer, and Santa doesn't want any harm to come to us. Right then, we hear a loud noise coming toward us, and the fir trees separate as an enormous creature passes through. Santa tells us to get behind him. But it's Chris. Santa Claus thinks it's a new monster, but we reassure him by telling him Chris is our friendly monster. We're all happy to have found Chris. But suddenly Santa Claus shoves us up and makes us slip. We start sliding down the mountains a lot faster than we climbed it. And we calmly come back to our car. Mom and Dad talk to one another a bit and decide that it's late and that we should stay in the car tonight. Chris will sleep on the roof. Mom finds 2 boxes of cookies and a bottle of fruit cocktail. We're happy because we won't have to eat any green beans or eggplant tonight. Chris is still hungry and wants to see if he can find something to eat further along. Mom's okay with him going for a walk, and she says that with any luck, he might even find help. Since it's still a little early to sleep, Dad asks us if we want to watch TV, and we shout, "Yes, of course, yay!" But it was a joke. There is no TV in our car. And we hear footsteps approaching, and we think it is Chris coming back. But it's Santa Claus who gestures for us to open the window. He apologizes for having shoved us earlier, but says it was to save us from the monster that was right behind us. Then he explains that he was finally able to get rid of it, but that's really weird because suddenly the monster's right behind him. It's terrible! The monster captures Santa Claus. We tell Mom and Dad, "We've got to do something quick, Dad." And Dad totally agrees and rolls up his window. We suggest drawing a big monster out on paper to chase away the wicked orange monster. And Dad says that might work. In fact, he'd brought along the shiny magic powder that brings drawings on paper to life. And Mom unfolds the map so we can draw on it with a marker. Very, very quickly, we make a gigantic monster that we call the Prickly Prickler. "That's excellent," says Mom, "but he's so big we have to put him outside before bringing him to life." Dad puts the shiny magic powder on the Prickly Prickler and quickly rolls up his window. Our monster rises up, growing and growling. There's going to be a super monster battle! The orange monster has grabbed the Prickly Prickler and is spinning it about above his head. Then he jumps on him in the snow, and the paper gets all wet, and the Prickly Prickler is reduced to mush. The super monster battle didn't last very long. In the meantime, Santa Claus appears behind our car, and he tells us he may have an idea. He starts making snowballs, but we'd be surprised if he scared the monster by throwing snowballs at us. Bizarrely, he hangs them in a tree as though they were Christmas ornaments. Then he pulls a big gift out of his sack, sets it at the foot of the tree, and calls the orange monster. The monster stops jumping around and starts smiling. Very happy, it comes to take its package from under the tree and opens it carefully. The monster pulls out a little teddy bear, and it starts crying really hard. Wah! Santa explains that the orange monster would like a gift its own size, and he also tells us he doesn't have any toys in his bag bigger than that teddy bear, and that he'd be happy if we could loan him a big doll if we had one. We tell him we don't have one. Santa is pretty annoyed, especially since the monster's coming to smash him. But before he squashes Santa, the monster hears a noise behind him. Now the orange monster looks very happy. It's Chris, coming back with a vending machine full of snacks. He approaches Chris and snatches the vending machine. He shakes the machine and eats all the candy and sandwiches without even taking off the wrapper. And then he squeezes Chris very tightly against him. He starts cradling Chris like a doll. He then pretends to scold Chris and gives him a spanking. And after that, he gives him some snow and a tree branch to eat. When he's finished all that, he runs away laughing really loud and carrying Chris off. Santa Claus is overjoyed. He says he's finally rid of that awful monster. But we're crying because Chris is our friend, and we want Chris back. Santa starts crying too. He says he can't bear to see a child sobbing, and that's when he tells us he has an idea. But if his idea is to give us a doll or a bear in place of Chris, we don't want it. He gets on top of the car and starts pulling the antenna. Dad complains because his 8-year-old car is still like new. Santa tells us to hold on tight, and we're off. Santa pulled the car out of the snow like it was a sled, and we drop towards a precipice, and we start flying at the very last second. Mom and Dad tell us to not worry, that everything will be okay, but we're not worried at all. There are the caves where the monster lives, cries Santa Claus. Oh, yay, says Dad. How do you know it's there? Well, we sat down beside the entrance, but we don't see any of the doors or doorbells. Santa goes first and quietly calls out Chris. Then suddenly he stops calling. It's surely because he's found him. Ah, the monster! The monster chases us and is going to catch us for sure. Luckily, Chris bites the monster with one of his 10 mouths, and right away the monster lets him go. Chris helps us to run away through a deeper cave behind us, and the monster is even more furious. In 3 strides, the monster is upon us and about to chew us all up to little bits. And Chris makes his loud roar, roar, and the monster stops in his tracks. Chris has totally scared him. But when we turn around, we see that it wasn't Chris who scared him. No. There, the monster's parents were coming home from work. Santa Claus explains to them what has happened. The monster's parents give their child a big spanking, and we say he certainly has deserved it. Then the parents explain to their child that a real monster must manage to eat everyone like a big monster, and that they're very disappointed we haven't been devoured yet. Ah! After that, all 3 monsters started chasing after us, and we screamed real loud, but it's not as loud as Mom and Dad. We fly away fast, while the monsters land on their faces in the snow, and then they disappear forever in a gigantic avalanche. Santa Claus laughs while saying, "We'll never again see those awful mountain monsters." We hang on the car as best we can, and we laugh a little bit. Once we come back down, Santa borrows a suitcase from us and wishes us a good time on our vacation. We wait till he's completely disappeared before we stop waving goodbye to him. Later, Mom asks where we're going, and Dad answers that we are going back home. Dad says he's done enough sliding around in the snow for the next 15 years. We're going to be able to decorate our tree at the house after all? When we finally get home, the tree's already all set up, and there are lots of gifts for everyone. Even Chris got a vending machine for himself. That is the Monsters Christmas. The end.